In a garden of wisdom where the wildflowers bloom, mystic chi is flowing, bringing life to the room, teaching hearts and mind. She lights the way ahead in a realm of learning, casting spells instead. With her tender touch, she plants seeds to grow in the soil of knowing, where we find our flow. Mystic chi guiding through our days.
All right, welcome. My name is Jerry Capizzuto from GodIsLoveTruthLife.com or GodIsLoveTruthFreedom.com, because a life without freedom is not a life worth living. And today I have an amazing special guest, Chris Callahan, who I met through the How to Become the True Media course of 2025. Welcome.
Thanks for having me, Jerry. Great to be here.
And I just learned that I've met your wife last year for the 2024 How to Become the True Media class. And so I was asking you, let's plug your channels first before we get into how you got into the natural law space. So your channels are on YouTube, Love Wisdom Freedom 93. Your Instagram is Love Wisdom Freedom. You also have a website, lovewisdomfreedom.com, which should be up and running by the end of June 2025.
Sounds good. Appreciate that.
Yeah. And yeah, so how did you get into natural law?
So I guess it was probably a couple years ago at this point, but it started. My wife had got introduced to a presentation from Mark that was sent to her in an email from, I think, Jason Christoff. So we had done a couple. I got kind of some of those hypno tapes and things from him. The one that I had sent you, and he had sent a video. I think it was de facto Satanism. Actually, it's a pretty funny story, actually, because I remember the first time when my wife was listening to it, and I in the other room, ignorant self, and listening to it, and I was like, "What are you listening to?" You know, my wife liked to um, look into the dark side or the problems a lot, and I really didn't like to dwell there, so I kind of tried to avoid that. And sometimes I was like, "Yeah, you just enjoy this, don't you?" And I remember her listening to that and being like, "What? Like, he's just saying everybody's a Satanist? Like, come on!" And pretty funny now, obviously. Now I completely understand, but I just remember the way it hit my ears at the time, and it was almost offensive, and like, you know, your ego just kind of rejects it. You don't even want to hear it or look at it. And she kept listening to him, and I would hear it kind of playing in the background, and there's a few things that eventually caught my attention, and I started listening to it. I was still working a corporate job. I was working at Merrill Lynch at the time as a financial advisor. So I was driving with my suit to work every day, listening to what on earth is happening, and it took a little bit to get through, but you know, I think it was kind of what I was been looking for probably my whole life. You know, I think um, finally to come to a good understanding of what's going on and how to actually do something about it was I think what I've been looking for. So it was really great. But yeah, it was obviously, when you first come into it, it challenges a lot of the things that you believe. It challenges a lot of things you're doing and participating in, and sometimes it doesn't feel good at first, but yeah, I mean, obviously, I'm extremely grateful now. But yeah, she kind of she obviously stumbled upon it first. She shared it with me, and kind of was like, I hope you figure this out, because obviously, as you know, once you really come to the understanding of natural law, if you were trying to cohabitate with somebody who um, didn't do it, it would probably be very difficult, as I understand now. But so I think she was hopeful, but I'm also kind of very stubborn. So I think she didn't want to force it too much and kind of let me come to it myself. And thankfully I did. And like I said, it's been a life-changing thing. I mean, obviously it's changed a lot in my situation. I've left my job. It's been a year and a half. We started first she started making sourdough, and we were working farmers markets selling sourdough bread. And then, the cannabis situation in Missouri also changed, and I was able to kind of work as a caregiver in that space as well. And really have gone from working a corporate job and basically spending all my time and effort and attention and care on something that's really made up, to now doing something I've loved for a very long time, and get to do it on my terms, and in a much better situation. So um, really it's been a blessing, and I'm pretty grateful to have come into it. I'm grateful she found it and got it to me, because yeah, like I said, it's improved so much. And that's why I'm here too, trying to put it back out there, because it's kind of crazy to think that we're all born free and equal and have these inherent rights, and this is like some absurd thing that you have to convince people of. But that is the state of things. And so it's obviously, the effect it's had on my situation. I'd love to share that with everybody, and obviously I'd like to see a lot of the harm that doesn't need to be happening stop happening. And so I think this is the best way to do it. So I know you're doing that too, and I appreciate you doing everything you're doing. And really, it was you asking me to do an interview that got me to first get a camera, and I've made my first couple little videos on there, and kind of was the little inspiration that got me rolling. So I appreciate that.
Wow, that means so much. Will Keller was my first interview, and I was nobody. I mean, I still am nobody, like cosmically. You know what I mean? We're all one. Um, but yeah, like I felt so grateful for him to give me that spark of inspiration. I just immediately felt called to like do that for others. Um, and like I was telling you, beforehand, like I want to be the first interview for the next, Chris Callahan. Like I want to be like that first person, like because that feels good for me, selfishly. So, but yeah, going back, I just want to make space for, first of all, how amazing your wife is. Have you guys thought about like doing work together at all, or is that in the
Yeah, we've
works?
thought about it. She's pregnant right now, and we've got four young kids also. My oldest just turned 7, so she's pretty hands-on a lot. She helps me with a lot of my stuff, and she's putting some things together. Really, what I want to encourage her to do is to do videos on the breakdowns of allegories of children's movies, because she really gets the symbolism and sees that. And obviously, the kind of few movies that we're let our kids watch, we make sure they have an allegory in them, and a good moral story, and we also make sure to break that down for them. And it's been a very helpful tool for us in teaching. And I think other parents armed with that information could, it's like when you watch Mark's presentation on the Matrix trilogy, or the Wizard of Oz. Both of those, really show so much, and it's like, wow. And then once you realize this deep of a message is in a movie that some people could see as so, base, um, it really opens your eyes. And once you do understand the symbolism and kind of, what those messages really are, then you can see it in all kinds of films. And so it's like it helps you discern which films are actually valuable to have your children watching, and which ones are not. And and also, helps you explain it so that the kids can consciously derive the value of the message instead of just subconsciously. So that's really what I want to encourage her to do. um I'm sure in time she'll be putting something out. You never know what it'll be with the kids and everything, but she's doing some great work as it is.
Absolutely. Wow, you guys are just like an incredible, just force to be reckoned with together. You're like a spiritual power couple. I love it. Um, I would, if she or you or both of you have some sort of like list for recommended movies for specific ages, I would like that. Um, I know we had our talking points and they're out of order, and that's fine. But you know, as a conscious parent or aspiring conscious parent, constantly aspiring, I'm always just really super mindful of what I allow my children to watch in terms of like, but then again, like I don't want to shelter them. So like if we do see something kind of immoral, I like to pause the video and just explain like, I don't agree with this, or what do you think about this character like getting away with that? And like, anyway, what are your thoughts on movies and parenting, conscious parenting?
I mean, I think with movies and media in general, obviously, it has a huge effect on their subconscious. And, I think for us, we kind of took the approach initially like just nothing, because we lacked kind of the tools to discern. So it was like, I kind of rejected almost all technology in general. It was like, I want my kids to even know what YouTube is. I don't want them to even know what that word means. And, the thought of just letting my kids roam around on YouTube was like, is still bonkers. So, I would never just allow that. I mean, my kids are also young. So, understanding kind of the subconscious and the formative years, I think sheltering them in those early, from birth to 6 or 7 years old, I think is okay, because you're laying down their base format, and so it's like there's even so many books that you go and read, and it's like all this really bad behavior, and then at the end they're going to tell you, oh, that was wrong. Well, it's like the kid would have never learned or thought about this kind of behavior had you not introduced it in this manner. So there was a lot of things like that, like books. There's many times where there's books we'll read and I'm changing words as I'm going through, and it's um there's a lot. I actually just went through all of the bookshelf today and got rid of a ton of books that just weren't value. There was no value in them, like, and maybe not bad, but just not value. There's plenty of books that have value. There's no reason to waste space with things that are useless. um and so, but back to the movie thing, we're pretty um sheltering in that respect. Just because it's in the formative years, it's just not worth it. Their brains aren't capable of comprehending a explanation of why somebody's emotions would have had them do something like that, and why it was wrong, and all, and so it's easier to just not be exposed to some of those things early on. Now at the same time, I'm very honest with my kids. So, like, I don't lie to my kids. So, when they see my wife saying something about chemtrails, like, they get an explanation about it, so they may be sheltered in one aspect, but they're not really sheltered to reality. So I take that approach. I think the one thing, I think I mentioned it to you once before too, but like, we did let them watch Lord of the Rings, or Harry Potter, and things about that. One, there's obviously great allegories throughout them, but the other thing is it's a very clear delineation between who's good and who's bad, and those people who are good, um, most times in those movies, are very principled. So, we don't let them watch anything where the main character is gray, is here and there, is, sometimes doing right, sometimes doing wrong, because I don't want them to idolize someone who doesn't choose to do right. Because I know that does not give us good results, and I do not want to live in slavery for the rest of my life, and I probably will, but I'd at least like to make progress in that direction. But I know one thing is I don't want any of that being created in the space that I can control. So uh, I don't want my kids thinking that it's cool to act in some immoral way. I don't want them to think that those kind of people are cool, or that it's anything to aspire to be. So for the most part, we just kind of keep that out, and like the bad characters in Harry Potter or the orcs. I mean, it's pretty clear. Like, this is somebody who's completely an ego and has lost their spirit entirely and is going around like a zombie and does wrong. Is that where you want to end up? So it's a good teaching tool as well. And also, the movies, if you try to tell them a lot of this stuff directly, like my kids have heard, what on earth is happening playing on speakers and stuff, and driving in the cars, and they know, the sound of it and everything, but they don't want to hear it like that, and they don't totally get it all like that. But then when Dumbledore says to Harry, like Harry's questioning himself, and he's like figuring out that he has this connection to Voldemort, and he's like, well, um, all these similarities between Voldemort and me, like what makes me different? Like, am I going to be like Voldemort? Am I going to go down that dark path also? And Dumbledore looks at him and is like, what makes you is your choices. And it's like, that's it. Like, that is inside of you. That could be you, but you have the ability to choose to do what's right and to go down a different path than what he chose. And being able to use that story with the kids is much more impactful than trying to give it to them direct at that age. So it really can be a tool, instead of something that is, indoctrinating them.
I love everything you said. I think whether it's books or movies, just storytelling in general, like you said, gives a more indirect approach that I think kids can digest, versus just, I find myself when I give direct sort of overt lessons, there's a lot, we get kind of lost in the weeds of me defining terms, and then I'm trying to like go over terms that I use, that like the terms, they kind of forgot what each of those words meant. And so and my kid's 6, my oldest one, and then I have a 2-year-old, but so we're kind of in a similar boat, parenting with the formative years era. And how cool is it that we're like, I just want to say we're podcasting at night after our kids went down. This is a challenge to anyone listening that doesn't have kids and isn't doing the one great work. We showed up and we made it happen. We put our kids down. We have busy lives. We're living life just like anybody else. And we're making time to podcast because we care. Like, I'm just going to say it. Like, I was hoping for more like, activity, from our class,
Yeah, I think there's always different reasons that kind of hold people up, but it does seem our class a little bit smaller than like at least the last one is the only reference I have, and it also seems that many people are taking it for a second time. So, but you would expect some more action out of that, but it some people might be waiting for this or that, but hopefully we'll get some more people to take action. I think obviously it's important, and it doesn't need to be this huge thing. I think if you don't want to get on camera, you can easily just set up a Substack and write articles. You could, I mean, I think there's so many different ways to go about this. You could write children's books, like you can make music. You could take music that's already been made and make it into a mix and add visuals and put it out there. What really needs to happen is that all the media that is out there includes this message. So all the movies have this underlying message. All the music has this message. All the art is in alignment with that. Our our the way we grow our food and teach about that is in alignment with it. Like everything needs to have the message, and so it doesn't need to be a formal presentation or a podcast or whatever. There's many types of media that need to have this message woven through it, and really there's plenty of people who have put out a lot of information, and that information can be, put together in different ways that can make it, more impactful or easier, or grab people in. I mean, there's so many different ways you can go about it. So I would just say that if the video thing is what's holding you up, or putting your face out there or whatever, that there's other avenues to go about it. And I just encourage everybody just to do whatever you can. There's a million things you could be doing, but um, really nothing else matters more than this.
Yeah, dude. Just like strikes through the heart. Um, I often feel that because I'm a parent, the one great work feels more urgent in a way, because I see I'm interacting with the next generation that's going to feel the effects of whether I choose to stand up against tyranny or not. What are
I
your
mean,
thoughts?
yeah, I mean, I would say I mean, having kids changed my whole mentality on everything. I think it's one of the greatest teachers that there is. I think one of the first things it does is it takes, if egotism is the first step to the slippery slope that leads you to social Darwinism and eugenics, then what's the easiest way to take somebody out of egotism is give them a child, because you're no longer number one. You have another life that is now, more important than you. And once you can first take yourself out of being the most important thing in the world, it opens you up to considering humanity and other things. So, I think it's a great teacher. And, so many people today in modern society are so into themselves that they don't even want to have kids, because what an inconvenience it would be. How could I do this? Like I couldn't drink for 9 months because I'm pregnant. I couldn't do that. It's like what people's priorities are is ridiculous. And I think having a child puts that in perspective, and gives you something to actually care about that isn't just yourself, and you start to care a little bit more, I guess. So for me, I think those things were, it was probably essential, to get me out of the self-centered egotism, materialism that they keep so many of us rooted in.
Wow. Yeah. Um, so I'm hearing that becoming a parent was huge for you in your shadow work journey. Um, I didn't mean to ask this, but what else has been helpful? And I'll start with myself. For me, I've been in therapy for almost 2 decades. I've done EMDR, I've done shamanic work, I've done plant medicine journeys, I've done journaling, I've done, just sort of somatic work, just all kinds of, meditation, yoga, martial arts, like just anything to kind of really just anything that heals. Um, what about you? What has been helpful in your journey?
I mean, I would say cannabis has obviously been something that I've kind of leaned on my entire life. I mean, I started smoking when I was 11 years old. So it's been a long time. Um, so me and her have had a long standing relationship. But so I've always used that, and now it's helped me in more than one way. Obviously, being a path to freedom from the whole corporate work system. So it's really been a beautiful thing for me. One of the other things that probably helped me more than anything was, obviously understanding, the natural law, and how the natural law expressions. I feel like a lot of people just say natural law, and like, um, that doesn't mean that much if you don't understand it or how to actually practically apply it. But understanding those expressions and just the love versus fear and how that plays out in your life. And I just started looking at things that I had done in the past based on fear and the result that that got me. And so many times there were things that I should have done and didn't do because of fear and took me down it was really the result of the situation I was in. And so I just, that critically looking at those decisions, being honest about it, admitting the wrongs that I did and the wrong decisions and things, and then applying that to decisions moving forward was like, okay, this is my initial reaction, but is that a fear-based decision? If that is, then I should not go with that decision and go with the other one. And then you start to see that actually the result of that. And um, now I would say, I don't believe in natural law. Like at first, it made logical sense, but I didn't have any practical evidence of it. But I would say it's very clear to me now that it works in that manner. And so that was that was huge for me. I don't do too much other things. Uh, I really try to focus on my health, so I don't consume a lot of harmful foods. I don't eat any fast food or don't drink soda. I haven't had any alcohol for 2 years. Um, I try to eat mostly organic. Don't eat meat, um, and try to just have mostly clean sources of everything we can. I have a little garden. It's not what I'd like it to be, but um, just try to be as healthy as I can. I feel like you get your body right, and you start to do what's right, and you listen to some good reggae music and smoke some good herb, and things are good. It's there can be a lot of harm going on, but it's like there's only so much you can control. If we sat here and dwelled on everything that um, all the harm and all the bad things going on all the time, we would not be in a good state. And so it's like you need to acknowledge what's out there. You need to understand it. You need to spend enough time researching it and looking into it so you have enough care to take action. But I've always been the kind of person. It's like once you understand it, it's like, what are we doing about it? Like I don't want to sit here and wallow in it. And sit here and talk about all the different things they're doing. It's like, okay, I get it. They're doing it. This is how they're doing it. Like, what are we going to do about it? And so understanding that really the solution is for people to just understand that we have rights and to stop causing harm to each other. It seems pretty straightforward. Let's just figure this out so we can move on with our lives. Like, it's just like what to think that we're adults and we need to live in this society with a bunch of freaks running around with bulletproof vests on and firearms, trying to sitting on the side of the highway to pull someone over just so they can pay for their salary to justify them sitting on the highway to pull someone over. And it's just like, how in the world can adults that think they're free somehow come to the conclusion that this is how a functioning society is? So it can be a bit frustrating. Obviously, I get a little frustrated, which is why I try not to spend too much time there. But it's like I spent enough time to get the motivation to take action. So I'm trying to. I'd like to fix it, and so I'm taking the action to do it for myself. I'm not perfect, but I've made some pretty big changes to really get myself in alignment with what is right and to stop doing wrongs and to stop being involved in institutions that do wrongs. Um, and so that's obviously had a benefit in my personal life, and I'd like to share that with others. So yeah, like I just I don't want to spend too much time dwelling and all that. So I like to just put the try and have a good outlook on it overall and know that at the end of the day, all the people that are doing wrong are going to get theirs when judgment time comes. And that's unfortunate if that's when they're going to have to figure it out. But I know that, you know, the earthly consequences are only a portion of it. So people are going to get theirs if they want to keep doing it. We could figure it out, and we could live in a much better life and not do harm. Um, so yeah, I mean that's kind of that's kind of the way that I go about it, and that's helped me to you know, not have a dark or negative outlook on things, and kind of accept where we're at, and accept the challenge and the mission of what we need to do to make it better.
I am just so honored to know you and your wife now, apparently, who I didn't realize I knew. Um, yeah, I resonated a lot with pretty much everything you said. I am noticing that, you know, you're really being driven through care to right action. And what are we going to do about the apathy, Chris? Like, I don't understand when people come into a certain level of understanding of what's actually happening with the tyrannical systems in place, if they have an understanding of natural law. And when I say natural law, it's not a cult, it's not a belief, it is. Like, cause and effect, you guys. It's simple.
Yeah, that's kind of funny. I get people that are like, you know, I have a hard time accepting these divinely created laws, and it's like, well, you accept that gravity affects you, right? Like, you accept that there is a force that man didn't create, has an effect on us. Doesn't matter whether we understand it, doesn't matter whether we believe in it, doesn't matter whether we want it to have an effect on us or not. Gravity has an effect on us. It works according to law. Whether our equation for it perfectly explains how that law works is irrelevant. What we call it is irrelevant. There is a force that keeps us on the earth. And just like that force is there, whatever you conceive of that put that force there, the same force put consequences for your actions. Like it's not this difficult thing to grasp. I feel like, you know, it's like this, it, people think of it, I think, as people either associated with some religion, and so many people are kind of traumatized from religious upbringings, and the obvious hypocrisy of the church and what they say and what they do. And so sadly, I think, kind of reject any concept of God or any authority because of that, and fall into kind of the scientism, atheism, materialism, or New Age type thing. You know, either way, um, it's hard for you to, you know, if you're New Age thing, you kind of just think my perception is all of it. Well, it's like, perceive gravity away then. Go ahead. Let's see you do that. Like, obviously that's not legitimate. Um, and if you are completely science oriented, then it's like, this obviously should still make sense to you. Like, I can show my kids a very easy example of the law of freedom. You know, if my kids are not doing anything to each other and nobody is hollering or hurting each other or crying, guess what? They're free. They're left alone. Nobody goes to bother them. And then one of them starts crying, or one of them did something, and it's like, oh, well, now I feel like I need to take this away and I need to restrict. And it's like, this is a very simple example. Like, you do wrong actions and then people try to control those actions. And so it's like, if you want to be free, leave people alone. Just don't harm people. So it's like this, I don't know, whatever it is that holds people up from accepting it. I feel like a lot of times it can be a particular issue, you know, or the presenter themselves. Like, I feel like a lot of people have a hard time taking in Mark's work, for whatever reason. I think a lot of it has to do with his obvious anger in the current in kind of the current state of things. But it's like, go back and listen to the podcast from the beginning. He was very polished and very straightforward and direct. But it's like, if you need it, you start at the beginning and you can take it all in. And if you don't want to take it in from there, there's plenty of other places to get it. I mean, you could listen to the works of Thomas Jefferson. He talks about natural law. I mean, it's referenced in the Declaration of Independence. He said our rights come from the laws of nature and of nature's God. He's also differentiating from the Christian idea of God or any other religious idea of God. He's talking about nature's God. Whatever you conceive of that, again, doesn't matter. There is a force. It's there. What we call it, what we think of it, it will never change it. It, it is there. And so it's like, um, yeah, I just don't understand. I don't get what holds people up from accepting it. But I hope to help. I think the one thing, I guess a good segue into kind of the project I'm working on, Natural Law Through the Ages. Really, my goal of that whole project is to look at the ideas of natural law through all kinds of different people's lenses and writings, throughout all types, throughout the ages, obviously, to show that, I can look at a very eclectic range, from Thomas Jefferson to Peter Tosh, to Thomas Aquinas to Haile Selassie. Yeah, you can go the whole gamut, and you can find this message woven throughout. And so, my goal is to really be able to put the message out there from so many different people that one of them will resonate with somebody. Because I know when I put out this Thomas Jefferson one, all the left wing type of thinking people are going to be like, oh, he's talking about racist and Thomas Jefferson this and can't listen to anything. I mean, where I was raised, you have this "don't tread on me" flag, and that somehow means you're racist. Which is also why I put it next to the Rasta flag, to really trying to bridge these two things. And it
Did I
because
miss a woke memo? What's racist about "Don't Tread on Me"? It's been a while, since I've, sort of socialized with the San Francisco Bay Area set. So I guess maybe I missed that memo.
I mean, I think, yeah, Confederate flag or "don't tread on me" flag would be almost immediately assumed to be racist, to probably most people there, and I would say probably most liberal thinking folks these days. But so I know I'm going to get that reaction as soon as I put out this Thomas Jefferson one. So that's going to, half the people who would ideally look at this are going to shut it down immediately and not take any value from it. Which is why then I'll come with Peter Tosh and appeal to a different group of folks, where a lot of the people who fall into this, right wing side of thinking, the people who still think in this political dialectic, where it's like, if anything could be associated with liberal, if I'm a right wing person, I can't even pretend to like that or be seen with that, and vice versa. So it's like, no one from the left wing will look at anything Thomas Jefferson, and reggae music is probably, rejected by most conservatives, just being where most of them live. um, and so it's, certain ones will get rejected, but my goal is to do an eclectic enough of a variety of thinkers and writers that, um, at least one of them will get through to everybody. So um, that's kind of my goal with that.
It's very
And
exciting. I'm
yeah.
very excited to see this presentation series that you have planned. And you also mentioned to me that you're wanting to do a presentation for SoundPath.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, um, Peter Tosh was the one I had planned to do next, and obviously the Sound Path to Freedom is going to be an awesome music festival. It's been great to participate in the watch party that I did, and looking forward to participating in future ones. And really, it's kind of what the watch party is, bringing up music and kind of breaking down the concepts of natural law is essentially what I hope to do with this this installment of natural law through the ages on Peter Tosh. So thought it'd be a great fit to kind of timing wise and style wise would be a great addition. So thought it'd be a good contribution to the music festival and add some additional info there. I'm also hoping to break down that symbolism in a little bit more formal presentation to kind of have a standalone primer on that so people can get a better understanding of kind of the message that is being spoken and be able to decode it a little bit better. But yeah, really looking forward to Sound Path. I'm excited that you kind of spearheaded that, and it's kind of funny. The couple of things that you're really focused on are really the areas that I have a passion in as well. The music and getting and putting the message out through music, and then obviously the parenting and bringing that to the children. Um, so I know we got another exciting project going on there as well.
Yeah, so you and I have been kind of working behind the scenes together with other folks for the Liberation Academy, and you've done an incredible amount of work, research on, finding sort of curriculum resources. And yeah, maybe we could talk about, what drew you to unschool, homeschool your family, your children.
Yes. I guess what initially drove me to homeschooling was just the acknowledgement that sending my kids to the state to be educated was just not a viable option at all. Um, I didn't know exactly how I was going to go about that, and I had made the decision before I'd even come to this understanding of natural law. I was like, I knew during the entire COVID thing that things weren't right, and I was not going to be sending my kids to participate in whatever ideas that this government had. Now I didn't realize the solution was you needed to get rid of the entire institution. I was foolish to think that you could somehow use that for the better, but um, I'm not foolish like that anymore. But so I had made that decision to, my wife and I had made the decision to not send our kids to school and to homeschool, and she's delivered all of our kids naturally. The last two of them at home here in our bedroom. So we're we don't take our kids to the doctor. We don't send them to school. We don't participate in the system for the most part. And so that was a decision we made early on. But as I got to understand the trivium a little bit more and the power in that as a teaching tool and for critical thinking, obviously wanted to make sure to incorporate that in how I was going to educate my kids. As I did more research, I saw that really this is considered more of a classical education, is how almost everybody was educated until modern times. But the beauty of it is it's kind of the trivium is the natural way that we come to understand things in the world anyway. So it's like coming into the information and the knowledge of something allows you to then come to the understanding of it. And once you have the understanding of it, you can put that back out there as action or as rhetoric or as your wisdom. And so it makes sense that this natural process is how we should be educating our kids. Um, and so in that research, I found, various classical kind of curriculums for homeschooling. The one issue I had is the only really good classical curriculums for homeschoolers are very religious tilted, because it seems the only people still classically educating their kids is people that are, it seems to be primarily Christian homeschoolers. is the only people still incorporating the trivium, and kind of the classical approach. Uh, and so I kind of don't fall into the Christian paradigm. I was raised, Irish Catholic in San Francisco, and um, yeah, you kind of want to run as far away from that as you can get. Um, but so I didn't really want to indoctrinate my children into the religion. So I wanted to adapt kind of a curriculum that was classically oriented with the trivium, but um, not totally remove everything that has to do with Christianity, because I think there is still an ability to learn from some of that. Um, but to not have this be the only thing. So um, yeah, so I kind of an initial curriculum, and then just adapted it to make it a little bit more holistic, and add a lot more about nature, and make sure to include art and music and everything, and then have natural laws kind of as a foundation um, through everything, because obviously that's one of the most important things we need to educate our kids with. And then, obviously I saw that you were getting this Liberation Academy going, and trying to implement this in an actual location, and incorporating it with homesteading, and food forests and things like that, which obviously is something that I'm kind of passionate about myself. So obviously I think that's a great thing to be doing, and really, I think probably a more valuable use of time than even making videos for people that are older than us to watch, because at the end of the day, they're not going to make the changes. They're calcified in what they're doing. They're dependent on the government. They're dependent on pensions. They're dependent on everything. They're not in good health. They've been brainwashed their whole lives watching television. They're not going to be the ones to make the change. So, really, we have an opportunity to educate kids, teach them these things, teach them critical thinking through a classical education, leveraging the trivium and the quadrivium, and having it based on the principles of natural law, so that we don't look to some man-made crap law that just changes with the whims of dictators, and we're founded in true principles. Um, and again, doing this research.
Keep talking. You're on fire, dude. Fire.
Sorry, well, just listening to, or doing this research on Thomas Jefferson, it's like, he said that these things were self-evident, that we're all created equal, and that we have these natural rights, and this this is no longer self-evident at all. And so we need this to become self-evident again amongst the kids, again, so we stop looking towards this man-made system. It's this is going to be the way we make the change, is by teaching these children the difference between right and wrong. And they're going to laugh at all of their grandparents and everything that somehow think this is right and that's wrong, and can't even define where a right comes from. um, but yeah, so I'm happy that you're doing that. I'm looking forward to trying to make some progress on something like that out here in Missouri. I'm gonna the curriculum that I put together. I know you're gonna use as a resource to build out the one that you guys will actually implement. It's a little bit bigger than any one person would probably do anyway. But I plan to make the one I put together available to everybody as well. So anybody that wants to educate their kids outside of a system, um, teach them critical thinking, so that they can pursue whatever it is that they want, and have the tools that they need to teach themselves, so they're not looking to any external person to teach them anything or do anything for them. And then have that based in the actual principles within nature of what is right and what is wrong, so that they don't go about their lives doing wrongs, supporting systems that are wrongs, or looking for anybody else to come and fix their problems.
I love everything you said. I mean, I'm I was thinking about this for like how to market this idea, right? And like, you have homeschooling families that get it, like your family. You and your wife and your family have, your kids are developing an understanding of natural law, and you're living in alignment with it through your choices as a family. And then you have some families that are sort of stuck in certain, let's just say it, Christian sort of spiritual cul-de-sacs. And like, but like they're getting the trivium, but like they're also homeschooling. And so, like, how do I appeal to those people? And then also thinking about, well, what can we offer that maybe a homeschooling family may not have? And so, I was thinking, with our online faculty, if someone wants to learn French or, take a Synarchy economics class online, they can. And it doesn't have to be all day, it could just be part of the day. And so that way we could still involve, homeschooling families from remote areas that, aren't anywhere near where we are in Florida. And then also just if you are at a location in Missouri or in Florida or wherever, it's an opportunity for your kids to socialize with other like-minded families that are in alignment with these concepts. And I think it's also really important to just state like this is like a natural law school based system, because that just sets the tone for the school, or excuse me, academy. I gotta keep saying an academy for various reasons. So I want to, you said so many amazing things. Kind of want to go back to how you grew up in the Bay Area in San Francisco. So I'm marveling that you grew up there. And I'm also marveling at myself that I lived there for so freaking long. And we both ended up here on a podcast together, of all places, living in the Bible belts of America. You're in Missouri, I'm in Florida. Like, how the fuck did we end up here, Chris?
It's I don't know. It is kind of funny to think about, because I think there's one thing about San Francisco is it's always been known as having kind of unique individuals that were somewhat against the system. And I kind of grew up around the cannabis thing, and obviously, they're kind of against the society for the most part, and definitely against the law enforcement. There's always been a tension there. Um, and also kind of in California, there was kind of those like real hardcore hippies, kind of back to the landers, like, self-sustainable. We want to grow our own, and I always kind of admired that kind of way of looking about things. And it was funny to me because I never even really thought about things politically or didn't realize it, because it was just so normal to have a liberal type of viewpoint, just because everybody just had that viewpoint for the most part. And so you don't even think about it at all like that. And then you go to college and it's more of the same. And um, you never even really see a different perspective for the most part. And um, really, it wasn't. I think the COVID thing really kind of, you know, I didn't like a lot of the mainstream stuff for the most part anyway. But then when that whole thing happened, it was just like, this is way too much. Like, if this is really what you guys think is legitimate, like, I don't want any part of this. And so it kind of, I realized, like, wow, this whole left wing ideology of like government and taxation and handouts is not a legitimate path towards anything. And it's obviously about control and money, and obviously we know more sinister things than that as well. Um, but it was like, I just I can't be a part of this. Um, so it was, that was kind of the impetus for me to be like, I need to get out of here. And then you get somewhere like Missouri, and you experience a different level of freedom, and you kind of, wonder and awed how you ever lived in a state that wasn't like this, and just think of all the people stacked on top of each other, and everybody. I mean, just I remember during the drought, and it was like if somebody was watering their lawn, people were calling the cops on you and stuff, and it's just like this whole everyone's policing each other, trying to act like they're this good person, and like all this misplaced care, and they basically weaponized compassion and kind of turned it into this um, whole fake thing where these people think they're doing what's good, and they don't want to actually do it, so they want the government to do it. And it's like, yeah, I feel good because I supported this thing, and it's like this thing is actually the epitome of what you claim to not be about. Like you think these things are bad. Well, what is the actual cause of that? It's the government, and you want to slap more government on there to fix it. Like, can't pick wrong with wrong.
Oh man, yeah. I recently showed my kid Larkin Rose's tiny dot video. Have you seen that?
Yeah.
I I think I developed inadvertently Pavlovian distaste for the word government in him after he saw that video. Um, but it's just funny, like just reflecting on the way I grew up, and probably you grew up, it sounds like, and then just seeing how different my kids are experiencing life. Like I remember my kid saw a school bus, and I'm like, they're going to school. And he's like, what's school? And I was like, it's a place where you have to sit at a desk and do as the teacher tells you, and you get very little time outside. Do you want to go there? And he's like, no.
No.
So it's
Yeah,
just sort
no,
of
it's
funny. It's like I don't think you and I are unique. Like you said, like there's Christian, families. Like homeschooling is becoming a thing. Like outside of the natural law community, like it's becoming a thing.
I think, the people are realizing that, the kids aren't getting educated. And then obviously if you're even just like a little bit aware of what's going on, you shouldn't be comfortable with what they're doing in schools. Like even if you're, whatever your views are on things, the things that are happening in schools and the controls they're trying to do. I mean, it's obvious, what they're trying to basically replace mom and dad with the state, and they want to fulfill that role, and they want to get in between. I mean, that's why the drug laws were started. Take dad out of the situation and put him in jail for not harming anybody, just growing a plant. And then you got mom, single, trying to raise kids, and we'll provide some assistance here. And it's like that. That's not exact. I grew up with a single mom, and she was on some sort of government assistance. I went to the school, and then the Boys and Girls Club. I had the free lunch ticket, and it was like, oh, when I got to college, I was like, well, the government was great. Like, how would I even be here if I didn't have financial aid? And so they give you all these things along the way that make you buy into it and think that it's actually a legitimate system. And then you've either been educated by it, or you're employed by it, or you're financially you're on disability, so you're on it forever, whatever they do to get their hooks in you. And so I think people are starting to see that. And if you don't, like, if you're having a hard time, you can at least try and keep your kids out of it. If you feel trapped in your job or whatever situation you might have got yourself into through your decisions and lack of understanding, um, it's okay. You can still make changes in what you're doing right now and moving forward. And you can certainly set your kids up for a better situation. And there's no better way to do that than to actually educate them yourselves and to be there hands on with them, spend the time and the care and the attention to what matters. Like, why would we want to go give our time and attention to some corporation instead of our children? It's like there's something that doesn't matter at all, and there's the most beautiful thing that there is, is another life that you have the opportunity to foster and nurture. And so yeah, I'm encouraged to see that there are, a lot of people are looking at that. I do think that many people get in this situation and are like, I know I need to get away from that, but I don't know what the hell to do. And so that's why I think some like the Liberation Academy, and even just the curriculum, like I think if somebody, it's like I feel like I could teach, but I just don't know where to start. And it's like, well, here's a guideline. Here's links to books that you can get and workbooks and things, and it's based on what's going to teach them to be able to learn for themselves. So it's like you're not going to have to do this come high school time. You know what? Like your kid's going to have so many tools by high school age. You're going to be like, all right, it's time for this class. Like, go learn geometry. Here's the book. Come back if you have questions. And they're going to come back like, okay, well, I made it through this. And like they're going to be teaching themselves, and then they're going to come and teach you. And so it's like you're giving them the real tools and the real information that matters, and you're not bogging them down with all the crap that they're getting in an actual school. And then for the people that still want to have some of that interaction, because like socialization is the thing that keeps most people from homeschooling. And it's like, well, if you actually think about what they're getting socialized with now, it's like that's kind of the reason I'm trying to keep them out. um but
Keep
but there,
talking.
yeah, but there is obviously value in kids interacting and learning from each other, especially older kids from younger kids. And so if you have a space, I mean, the thing that keeps me from bringing my kids around other kids is that most other kids are eating crap, and they're not principled, and they watch all kinds of stuff. And so it can be difficult to bring your kid around someone. It's like, oh, they're eating this, I want to eat this. And it's like, well, sorry kids, you're not eating that. They want to go and watch this, and it's like, yeah, if they're watching movies, you need to go to another room, like and so it can be inconvenient, and a lot of times, and it can be offensive to the other parents. I find that even if you're not talking to the other parents' kids or saying anything to them directly, if you don't let your kid do something they're letting their kid do, they kind of feel some type of way about it. And so it's hard to be in a situation where you can comfortably be with other kids and have you want to provide your kids opportunities to meet other kids and have friends and build relationships and learn prudence through actually interacting with someone that's not just their family. And so having something like the Liberation Academy you guys are doing, and then weaving in homesteading and all those other tools that make you self-reliant and not needing um, anybody else to do things for you. It's like at the end of the day, if you can grow food and teach yourself whatever you need, and you're doing that with the principles of right and wrong as your foundation, then you're good. You don't need nobody else. And that's what we need. We need a world of sovereigns, of people who are in control of themselves and are in alignment with natural law, that as they think, so they feel, and so they do, and don't look towards anything external to get things done for them. Like, go and take care of yourself and look out for others. And it's like, we can get beyond all there's just, we're giving so much time and attention and energy to shit that doesn't matter. And we can really set these kids up to value what does matter, and give them the opportunity to spend time on what does matter, and instead of this system they want us to give our energy to.
Wow, amazing. Dude, you and your whole family are just like a living example of like what I want the future to be like when it comes to like families and parenting. Like if we can just get more families talking, thinking, speaking, I said talking and speaking, whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like just like in this mindset, we would be free. We would be free. And
It would
um,
only take a generation,
right.
literally. if we can educate, I mean, if we can get to enough parents that have young kids in the formative, especially if still in the formative years, you know, we can truly educate people. And I think the young kids, obviously, the way they're able to get them to kind of go against their parents is because they're like, look at what the world your parents have created. Like that ain't what you want, is it? So I think part of me thinks that they're as off the path as this younger generation seems to be with the distractions and the social media and the video games and the lack of true connection or actually even any human interaction. Um, there does seem to be the soil seems to be fertile for something proper to be given to them. They seem like they would be receptive to it if it was given to them in the right way. So I think it's there's just so much more opportunity with younger folks. And um, yeah, I don't know. I wish we could figure out a way to get through to even the people in high school age right now. If you could help get this message to them, because they're not so calcified. That the one of the hardest things with this whole deal is like, if you've spent your whole life dedicated to some job, then to come to realize, like, and especially if you identify like you're in full attachment, you identify like this is your most proud achievement is your career and what you've done in your job. And then to come to realize, like, like I had to come to face the fact that I spent all my years in college getting 2 degrees in finance and economics to go and work as a financial advisor for almost 10 years to realize this shit's all made up. The entire thing's made up. And it's really just a vampire. It's just a system set up to suck off of the people that are actually creating stuff. And it is part of the problem, and it's all based on a fucking lie. And that was a little bit hard to come to terms with, but you got to come to terms with that. And thankfully, I hadn't done it for 30 years and was living on the pension I had just earned for my commitment on that, and had to somehow come to terms with that. But I guess I had the blessing of never being overly financially successful, so it wasn't too hard for me to fuck it off. But it's you just we're everyone's calcified in a lot of these ideas because they identify with whatever it is they've committed so much to. And sometimes it's just like, they've said something that's in contradiction, and their ego just won't let them admit that's wrong, and that's enough to hold them back. I mean, sometimes it can be just one issue. Like, I think, some people hear me speak and like think like, wow, if I go down this path of learning what he's learned, then I'm gonna have to reject government entirely. Like I think people like get scared of that. It's like, dang, I'm gonna have to quit my job if I keep learning about it. And it's like that's enough to be like, well, maybe I shouldn't continue learning anymore about this because I don't want to have to deal with that.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
reminds me of the devil card in the tarot with like the loose, sort of chains.
yeah,
Like
they're not on there.
they're not they're it's of their own
Self-imposed.
choices. Right, right. Yeah. Yeah, I agree that I look at people on the One Great Work Network, Mark's work, Mark Passio's work, whatonearthishappening.com, and just thinking about just all the people throughout the ages, shout out to your presentation series, that have spoken on these concepts and um, in a lot of cases have died, been killed, murdered for speaking the truth, um, and fighting for the truth, giving their lives for truth.
Peter
And
Tosh included.
yeah, I'm just like thinking about all the people who like we don't know their names, them too. Um, and just thinking about just like the millennia of time that humanity's been in this state, and also thinking about, you know, what a miraculous thing that, you know, you and I and others in our community who have done actual, you know, work on themselves and like, you know, went through the trivium process of understanding what natural law actually is, um, to, you know, want to share this with other people. And, um, yeah, like, I wish I could just tell people, like, it's going to suck at first, but you're going to feel so fucking amazing, like living in alignment, with truth, with what is right. And, um, I'm just, there's so many things that aren't talked about a lot. You know, had lots of synchronistic experiences, had a lot of mystical visions, sober and on plant medicine. I've had just amazing people come into my life. And yeah, like it's like one can selfishly experience uh, the karmic rewards in an immediate individual level. That's possible. And I've experienced it. And it's a tough sell because, especially like you said, if people have been indoctrinated in a system, in a cult for so long, you're basically questioning their entire reality they've built their life upon. And that can lead to suicidal thoughts, that can lead to anger towards the person, you know, bringing them the mirror to themselves and, you know, wanting to shoot the messenger, literally. Yeah, just so, yeah, I also think as just a parent, um, it's our responsibility to not pass on this intergenerational trauma to the next generation. And it's just too bad that, you know, there's so many parents that don't have that mindset, unfortunately. But I'm also finding in the South, there's a lot of like young families. And I find that the younger parents are like, you know, Gen Z are like, you know, they're 25, they have 3 kids, you know, already. And they're very cool. They're very cool. They're very formidable also,
Yeah,
interestingly enough.
there's definitely a lot of opportunity there. Again, because I think here, you know, Missouri, Florida, there's just this more southern area. You get, obviously, there's a lot of Christianity and religion, and it's obviously very, you know, strong in certain areas. And I feel like you kind of run into two situations with the younger people. Either they completely reject it because they were, you know, very uncomfortable with the way they grew up around it, and kind of reject it outright because of that. Or they're trying to incorporate themselves within their family. Um, and it's kind of a tough situation because I think uh, the interesting part is the people who are have a Christian belief or a religious belief, um, are actually closer to an understanding with where we're at than somebody who is in a materialism, scientism, atheistic type of viewpoint, because they accept a higher power. They accept that there is a law, a moral law that is inherent. Uh, you know, if they actually go by the words of Jesus, you know, it's like he talks about, you know, like I am the way, the truth, and the light. You know, it's like he's referencing that the truth is the way there. And so there's ways to kind of relate this, what we're saying, in terms that are digestible and easy to understand for somebody with a Christian worldview. There's a few major hangups that are, you know, which is the whole point, is like you get these, you give a good bit of truth, and then you layer in a couple sinister lies that will prevent you from ever getting all the way there. um, and the problem is they're there, but they're very calcified, and it's based on faith. And so you can't question it. You can't look at things that are against it because they're evil, they're bad, the devil's got you, whatever it is. And so it's like you can't even get them to look at these things, and they reject it. You know, you say as above, so below, and it's like they've seen a couple little things and they think it's this weird symbolism, and you're associated with some cult just because you say as above, so below. And it's like, yes, there are sick people that use this information and do absolutely sick things with it, but the information itself is not what's evil. It's the people who are using it. Just like a gun is not evil inherently. You can use it to stop a murderer or a rapist, or you could use it to shoot up a school. It depends on the consciousness of the wielder, of the tool itself. Um, and so it's like they won't even look at these things, like anything labeled occult or esoteric is just evil and bad. And so it's hard to get them to come to understand natural law, because really, you know, the primary source of the real information of natural law is more cult type esoteric writings. You know, things like the Kybalion, the Corpus Hermeticum, and things like that, and the Stellar Man, and it's like those, the end of all evil. It's like those books that help you really come to that understanding. Those people won't even look at, and it's like, oh, it's evil because, you know, like the Kybalion, it has the that symbol on the front. It's like, yeah, the philosopher's stone. What's bad about it? You know, it's like the symbol isn't inherently bad itself. And so it's like they're closer to the understanding, but further from getting all the way there because there's just so much more of a barrier. Now, the other side is you have the people who rejected it and kind of fall into scientism or materialism or atheism, whatever it may be. They may not reject any form of, they may be atheistic, they may think there's something but just have no idea and just don't care to even think about it, or whatever it may be. um, and so for them, like, this idea of natural laws gets thrown in with God, and then it's religion and it's out. So it kind of creates that barrier. But the reality is they're less calcified, because it's not based on well, it is. They probably have some ideas based on dogma, but it's not this thing on faith. And like, there's not an entire, you know, that there is, you know, culture does kind of pressure people. Like, you know, when I first started going against the vaccines and stuff, it was like, you know, there was like this whole worry you're going to get, you know, a label of an anti-vaxxer or something, and it's like people are going to just reject everything you say. So there is that cultural pressure, but um, in reality, they're further from the understanding because they don't accept some higher authority or some higher power. But I think it's going to be easier to get them all the way there because they don't have this idea of faith ingrained in them, and this fear that's been put into their subconscious since they were children about the devil or whatever it may be. So they don't have that extra layer of calcification. So I think it's going to be, it's a longer road, but it's actually doable. Where I think the other road is going to be very hard because, like, you know, I mean, I think there's still a place where you can accept the Bible and understand natural law at the exact same time. And I don't think you necessarily have to throw the entire Bible out. Which I think if we can convey it in a way that does that, you have a better opportunity. Because again, imagine, again, these people, their entire life has been around this. You want them to reject their entire generations of existence, you know. And so that's a harder pill to swallow. Than maybe I just need to look at this with a new set of eyes, because the message is in there. Because I do think a lot of the message that what Jesus was trying to put out in the New Testament really is trying to convey that message. You know, he was spending his time with people who society looked at was wrong, but were mostly in consensual type things. The reason they killed him because he was trying to speak the truth, and he went into the he went in and was flipping tables and things of people who were trying to basically turn the church into a money making endeavor, and essentially take the truth as a way to make money instead of a way to enlighten people. When really he even says, I am the truth, I am the way, I am the light. It's like the truth. Like if you stop looking at him as the man and just replace the man, God, whatever, replace that with the truth, and it really makes a whole lot of sense because it's like, well, we need to trust in the truth. We need to look to the truth. We need to hold the truth. And because the truth is natural law, because natural law is the objective truth of the laws of nature. And so it's like that is what is going to, that is the way, that is the light. Um, and so, I think there is a way to frame it within the confines of the Bible and their ideas that can still help them come to this understanding. Because at the end of the day, you don't need people to reject their religion as long as they are in alignment with natural law. Like you could conceive of God or the creator, or you can call it gravity if you want. I could really care less. Like it, that doesn't matter as long as your belief system doesn't cause you to justify actions that are not in alignment with natural law. That's when it becomes a problem. And I think that's when it's considered a cult, right? Once your belief system causes harm to people who are not holding that same belief, that's the definition of a cult. So, a cult, not a cult. Um, and so, if you're in a belief system that causes harm objectively because it's objectively wrong and objectively against natural law, and that's justified because of your belief system, then you're in a cult. I mean, there's no really other way to put that. Um, and so it's like it'd be great to help people to not be in cults like governments and different religions. Um, and there's opportunities to not have to reject your entire culture and belief system and still come to this understanding. So I think there's opportunity on both sides of that. I think those are kind of the two primary things that I see, at least in Missouri, kind of the two approaches that I have to take. And I see that, and I do think if you can find a way to frame it that doesn't have to have people reject their religion, um, you'll have an easier time. Although obviously religion is meant to bind you and hold you back. Um, I think obviously the Rastas, not all of them, but the message conveyed in the reggae music, you know, they hold the Bible to be to be legitimate, yet at the same time do not have the major trappings that hold them back from taking action. Um, you know, I think I kind of look at the main ideas in Christianity that hold you back is like the externalization of a savior. It's like that prevents you from taking any action because you think the action's already been done or somebody else is doing it. And so that's kind of one of the major hangups. And obviously they're not in that hangup. The other thing I think that throws them off the path is this idea of this eternal place of heaven, because people kind of don't care about what happens here, especially if you think you're already saved because all you have to do is believe. Then really your actions here don't matter that much. You just have to keep believing, and then either you'll get saved here, or when you die, you get to go to like eternal bliss and paradise in the clouds. And um, I guess to me that entire concept seems kind of funny because it's like, what the hell's the point of this entire existence if you just go to eternal happiness and paradise? Like it doesn't make any sense. So But I think, that prevents people from caring, because if you realize you're probably coming back here, whether you have kids or not, you'd see a little more urgency. We recognize that urgency because of parents, but um, they if anybody would care more if you realize you're probably going to be back here again, and that your situation could be better if you do better now. You know.
Right.
So I think some of those major hangups don't seem to fall in with the Rostas seem to have shed that, yet still can use the book and learn from the book, and hold it um, as a valuable, probably the most important book to read. So there's a way to get the message of natural law through to people without having them have to reject their religion entirely. And I think that would be a very valuable tool in getting people in alignment, because again, that's all we really need. We don't need everybody to have the same ideas and beliefs. Like, you can have a million different cosmologies and ideas of human origins and how things were created, and all that, as long as we all get on board with some basic principles of, like, don't do harm.
Exactly. I think you pretty much summed up how I feel about the difference between esoteric and exoteric Christianity. I think the teachings of Christ, a lot of them are extremely valuable, and a lot of them have been hidden. There's all kinds of apocryphal texts that are not included in the sort of exoteric version of Christianity. Um, things like reincarnation were taken out, and like you said, like that's kind of like key component in terms of motivation to do the right thing. I often think of this experience that we're in as a sort of karma school, and it's like an opportunity for us to progress in that learning experience, or devolve. And yeah, I think reincarnation is definitely a big part of it. Externalization, like you said, of a deity, instead of seeing one's thoughts, emotions, and actions and how they are aligned or not, is the more important thing than whether or not you believe in something outside of yourself, which is also an appeal to authority and is a brainwashing schema. I mean, essentially, we're tasked with deprogramming an entire brainwashed populace that's been brainwashed for millennia. Like, it's not easy. It's not an easy task.
Yeah, I think the one good part about it is the information is within, and so it is knowable. And I think our souls are all trying to tell us this. It's like the reason people in these jobs and this going along in this society are have anxiety and depression and all these um, issues, even physical ailments. So much of that is because they're doing something, their entire life is not real. Essentially, they're not doing what they have there's this inner desire to actually do something, and this, like, this inner self that's trying to actually express itself in this world, and it's being thwarted, at all costs. I mean, I think of my role as a financial advisor, and it was like, anytime I met somebody, it was like, oh, this person could be a client. So I gotta, like, could be a potential client. It's like I gotta pretend I'm this or that. It's like, really, I want to light a joint and let my hair grow. And it's like I kept my hair cut for forever. I never grew my beard out. I had to hide that I smoked weed. It was like, it was all these things that you do, and it's like, am I doing anything wrong being this person? Like, no. And so why am I thwarting myself from being this person? Because I think they think that, or I don't think they'd trust investing with me, or whatever it was. But it's just all these different mechanisms to, like Jeremy Locke says in The End of All Evil, talking about how culture is used to control you. It's culture and law, and it's like these two things are there to make you not be who you really are, and that's why people are unhappy. That's why people are sick, and it's like just listen to that voice, take it to a kid's movie, Moana. The grandma is always her Moana's drawn towards the water. She wants to go to the ocean. She doesn't know what it is, but she's always drawn there. Her dad is trying to control her because of his fear and keep her from going to the water. And grandma's like, you hear that voice inside you. That voice is you, listen to it. And she finally realized, she's being called to the water for a purpose. And then you'll notice it's the heart of Tafiti, and it's green hair, and because it was taken by a man of ego that thought he could give people the power to create from nothing. He brought darkness onto the world, and there was a beast of earth and fire, missing the water, the care, and the care needed to be restored through the female character of Moana, and finally listening to her true self and following her path. And she was the one that saved her people. And it's like, there's no going to be that one. We all need to be that one that's going to do it for ourselves. And if every single person took that action through that care, we would make a lot of change, in a very short time. But it's there, talking to everybody. So it's like, if you can give it to them in the right way, it's going to speak to them, and eventually, hopefully, they'll acknowledge it and recognize it and just step into it. Because at the end of the day, this is the most empowering information there is. Like, all's I'm trying to get anybody to come to the understanding is that you were born free just like me. I was born equal to you. We were every single person in this world was born exactly equal in our rights. And the only reason we're not experiencing life that way is because people believe that some people have rights others don't have. And stop believing that shit. And guess what? This shit's going to go away, because the only reason it's there is because we've given it the power, because we, for whatever reason, refuse that, want to refuse. It's fear. I mean, that's what it is. It's fear. Fear is preventing people from just acknowledging, like, hey, I'm free, I'm responsible for myself, and so that means, like, I'm going to have to do things for myself, but no one else can actually tell me what to do as long as I'm not harming anybody. And, like, I think everybody would could want that, like, you can actually express yourself in whatever way it is, spend your time doing what you want, creating what it is you want with who you want, and however it is you want, so long as you're not harming somebody. Like, that's the world that we should be living in. And yet people from the age of 5 go to a government indoctrination camp for 6 to 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, just to prepare them and dumb them down so that they can go and work a career for some corporation, just to make enough money to buy some things and have, this so-called life of the American dream, just so, like, when you're finally when you're old, you get a little bit old, and you're don't have the energy, that you can finally retire and go and spend whatever years you have left, it's sitting in an old folks home. It's like, there's something to life, and that sure as shit ain't it. And, like, people need to just buck up and figure out, like, that ain't what life's about. Let's just fucking live life the way it was supposed to be lived. And we can do that by just not harming people. And it's like, whether you want
Dude,
to acknowledge that as natural law or not, or whatever the hell you want to call it, I don't care. Like, let's just acknowledge that there are certain things that cause harm. There are these basic things, and just don't do those. Like, don't do things to people you don't want done to you. Very fucking simple.
okay, I'm just gonna say it. I think you should be a host on Revolution Radio. I think you have a very, like, weird, like cool mix of like personal narrative with like teachings. And you kind of like weave in between those. Um, you could have your wife come join on occasion and like once a month, and then you guys could talk about parenting together. Another week you could do a reggae hour, like I feel like you have just so many avenues. Like if you just, decide to go the radio show host, I don't know, I think you have a very just sort of like natural, honest like way of speaking. You talk about subjects that are a bit vulnerable, but like you just go there because why not? There's no shame anymore. That's manufactured, and it's fear, like you said, fear based. So yeah, just putting that out there, like you should
Something to
consider.
consider.
Yeah, they have slots open. The only reason why I can't right now commit to something like that is just like life's kind of chaotic time wise, as evidenced by us meeting at it's midnight right now. You guys, we're recording this at midnight. This is like hardcore, conscious parenting podcasting happening. But yeah, like eventually it would be cool to like get something more regular again. But yeah, if you have the bandwidth, what do you think about that?
That's something I'd consider. I've always thought about something like that. I don't know what the time commitment would be like, and I always think of what I would. 'Cause I'd thought about doing something like that, or just something more regular. And uh, I guess I mean I can talk obviously, but I try to always have a little bit more. I like the approach of researching and having a more formal presentation. Um, but I mean, I could probably, do more than one avenue. So it's something I'd consider, even if I just played some music and talked about it for an hour, would be worthwhile and cool for me. I love sharing music. I was the kind of guy who, back in the day, I made a mix CD for everybody, and like when I met my wife, like the first thing is I made her like a mixtape. I got that. That was the
That's so sweet.
I always like to share music, so um, that would be something I'd enjoy. But I'd be curious to look into it. I'm trying to figure out how to best allocate my time to to not do too many things. I tend to jump into a bunch of stuff and get all excited and then try to overcommit and then try to have to reel back in. So I'm trying to figure out, yeah, I'm trying to figure out exactly um, where I want to spend my time and what I want to commit to and what's going to get me the most value. And obviously, I want to focus on the natural law through the ages series. So I plan on really focusing on that. I'd like to keep contributing to this school effort and figure out ways to expand that um, and then I'd like to do some more with the music stuff. So I could probably find a way to incorporate that with them. So you could send me some info, and I'd be interested to look more into it. But yeah, I want to get more into mixing again too, because I feel like making cool reggae mixes and stuff with conscious lyrics and then being able to add good visuals would be cool. I always think like, all right, if I can put these songs in the order, give somebody the right dose of mushrooms, and like with the right visuals, it's like there's no way they're not going to get the message. Um, so I think
Yeah.
there's some opportunity there.
As a technical sidebar, have you heard of or used Filmora? John and I started playing around with it recently, and it's freaking amazing. It's like this AI video editing software, and it's pretty dope. Like, and you can just type what you want, and it'll AI generate a short B-roll for you.
That's
Um,
kind of I'd be interested in that because when you brought that up with Derek on the watch party, I was kind of like, that's one thing I've been trying to figure out, like where do you get these visuals? And so then I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to just start going through all these documentaries and just making a bunch of clips and then be able to do it from there or something like that. But it'd be great to just have something that could generate something. But 'cause I always, when you get the right visual, it can be so impactful. And so I'd love to figure out a way to make that process more efficient instead of having to like watch a whole documentary, then go bring it into OBS and have this clips, then have all these clips organized and try and remember which one is which. Um,
And you could do a mix of that, right? Like if you see something really striking, you could, save that and then, yeah. Um, cool. Well, I think we're nearing the end of our episode. I really enjoyed this conversation. I feel like we covered a lot of subjects. Is there anything else that you would like to share with our audience?
um, I had some notes. I was just going to take a look here, but no, I think that was pretty good. I appreciate you having me on. Obviously, I got quite a bit to say, so I could talk for days. But um, yeah, this obviously something I'm passionate about, so I'm happy to be um, taking some steps to actually get some things out there and start to use my voice to put the message out there. That's really all that we need to be doing. So all of these things are valuable. It's been helpful, and I'm just looking forward to doing more. And I appreciate you having me on here and all the stuff you're doing as well.
Of course. Well, dude, like seriously, you're so inspiring to me. Like I get discouraged, honestly, like when I like see like a rather large group of people, let's say in our community, and then like a fraction of the people within that already small community are doing actual like work. And I think it's also awesome that like you have like a natural law family.
All right, anyway.
I mean, that's freaking amazing.
Pretty cool. And, I think, like I said, we could really change the world like that. Because it's exponential. I'm going to be able to go from me and my wife, two people, and educate five. Uh, and, you're one and can educate two. And so it's like that happens pretty quick. So,
Yeah.
and again, they're like John 9 says, the kids are the future. Like, let them lead the way. We just need to cultivate them and provide them the tools and the space so that they can do it. Where we need to lay the groundwork and prepare the soil, plant the seeds, and let them be the trees that grow. Just like the Bible says, you reap what you sow. um it's pretty clear. The seeds that you put out there is what you're going to get back, and the care that you put into that is going to be indicative of how quality the fruit that you produce. And so there's lots of opportunities with these kids, and we keep putting out some resources and making it removing some of the friction to make it easier for other parents to do this, because it's not that hard. There's challenges, but there's challenges with everything. And if there's anything we're gonna take challenges on for, it should be for our own children and for humanity, and the difference that they can make. So um, yeah, it's a blessing. It's an opportunity, and I'm just grateful to be here and not where I was, and not continuing down that path. So
Awesome. Thank you.
appreciate it. Have a good night, Jerry.
You too.